Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their April 3rd, 2017 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5B, Public Works Quarterly Report. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Public Works Director Chris Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As always, it's my pleasure to be here with you this evening presenting our first quarter report for 2017 for the Public Works Department. And we'll get started talking about a few of the tasks our maintenance staff has been working on during the first quarter. And one of the first ones is disposing of our sweepings. As the council is aware, throughout the year, our streets division performs different sweeping functions. We do, of course, an annual spring street sweeping, which we're currently doing right now. We also do quite a bit of sweeping after road projects, crack sealing, seal coating, those sorts of things. A lot of sweeping during the Panaprog time in different areas throughout the city, and then we do also a fall sweeping of the entire city to pick up leaves and other debris prior to the winter season. Those sweeping, all of that debris is stored at our Public Works storage facility in the Air Lake Industrial Park area. Those sweepings are screened to remove any trash, garbage, other debris, things like that. However, the material is not contaminated. It's still very difficult through regulations how we dispose of that. There's only some limited uses that we can use that material for. So since we don't reuse all of that material, the remainder is disposed of at a solid waste facility. So you can see that in the center photo. But to make the most out of our trip to that facility, we then return, and as you're also aware, the city needs other materials like gravel and sand for water main breaks or road repairs, and so we return and make sure that we return with our trucks fully loaded with materials when we come back to the city. Velocity patching, as the council is aware, we did add a new piece of equipment to our fleet last fall, in the fall of 2016, and that was a velocity patch truck. This is something previously that we had contracted for this work annually to the tune of about $200,000 every year. The truck carries emulsion and rock chips in the body and allows one person to do a variety of patching tasks. The main strength, and you can see by the photo in the center of the velocity patch truck, is to patch very thin areas where the top layer of asphalt has come off. It doesn't do as well with deeper potholes, and I'll get into that in a moment. But you can see by the photos, a lot of folks wonder how this works. The first thing that occurs is the truck blows out the area to be patched with compressed air. Then an emulsion is applied to the area to create a tacky layer. And then a mixture of rock and emulsion is applied to fill the hole. And then very last, just straight rock is applied over the top of the hole, and that's the photo that you see in the right slide. This material works very well, and like I said, we've been doing it in Lakeville about 5 or 6 years, and it gets us through a lot of those areas that we're experiencing kind of the surface failures in asphalt, which is a number of the roads that we're doing the reconstructs on, and buys us another period of time. But as I mentioned, it does not work so well for deep holes or potholes. So our crews have been out in the first quarter of the year. The hot mix asphalt plants opened here during the month of actually March, which is quite early. Usually we don't see some of those plants open until April or sometimes even later. So our streets crews are out. You can see typically a pretty simple repair when we're just filling potholes. We use our hot mix patch truck, which carries enough mix that we can patch all day long. It keeps the mix hot and fresh. We're able to apply it to the area that needs the patch, shovel it, rake it, and then tamp it into place, and hopefully that will stay throughout the season. As I talked before about disposing of our street sweeping debris, we have started our spring street sweeping. The city has 3 street sweepers that we perform this with. It's really critical that we sweep the streets in the spring. We of course clear the leaves, trash, and other debris that's accumulated over the winter from the streets. It helps to improve water quality in our local lakes, streams, and rivers. and it also ensures that our storm sewer system does not clog and cause localized flooding when we start to receive the spring rains. Every year in the spring our crews start, and again this year has been one that we were able to get out quite early in March. But our crews start in environmentally sensitive areas around some of the city's many lakes and ponds, and then we expand throughout the city until all of the sweeping is complete. And in many instances, we go back and perform a second sweeping in the spring as well. So moving away a little bit from our streets division, we'll talk about recent repair, and this is just one example of repairs that we quite frequently, unfortunately, have to deal with our utilities division. And as the council's aware, water mains repairs can be anywhere from a break in the actual main to a problem with the valve. And this one that we're showing occurred a little over a week ago, a week and a half ago, near the area of 170th Street in Jonquil. And you can see, thanks to a resident, we received a report of a geyser. While this is not a geyser, I can tell you that the valve was throttled down and the water main was throttled down. It was spraying much higher previous to our crews arriving. So our utilities division, you can see that's our city staff there, excavated the area, worked down, and found that because of some of the corrosive soils that the actual bolts that hold the valve together had corroded through, and just with the pressure of the system allowed the valve to release and ultimately caused the issue that you're seeing. Within a couple of hours, our crews had performed the repair and backfilled the hole and restored the water service to the area. I do want to mention it was a resident that reported this to us. It's really important, and we really appreciate when anyone sees anything, even if they think it might be normal. If you even have a question, feel free to report it. It's these sorts of instances that we can get out. It caused less damage to the street, less disruptions to folks, and of course less water that was lost the sooner that we can find out about it. So we thank that resident for that. Also busy at this time of year is our fleet maintenance staff. You can see in some of the photos some of the work occurring on one of our fire trucks, and then also some work occurring on one of the Parks Department mowers. This is a really important time that we transition from the winter to the spring and summer season with all of the seasonal equipment changeovers. While we haven't taken all of the snow plows off all of the trucks, some of our smaller equipment, we have begun the transition because we know that grass and other things will start growing and there will be other needs there. Our technicians, which we have 5 of, do a really outstanding job, and I want to give them some praise on keeping our fleet in top running condition, top quality condition to be able to respond, especially to emergency situations. Kind of an interesting thing I thought I'd highlight here is in front of our police department. This is a unit that we use it's maintained by our streets division, and it's used mostly in the repair of catch basins and storm sewers, outfalls, things like that. But in this instance, there was an issue with some of the lighted bollards and the monument sign at the police station. While we had a contractor respond, electrical contractor, to make the repairs, while they were capable of excavating in these areas, the costs would have been substantially more. So because of the sensitive nature in this area with a lot of other utilities and some of the plantings, our streets crews went in and performed some hydro excavation, which is using more or less a large vacuum and water to excavate around the electrical utilities. The contractor was able to make the necessary electrical repairs and backfill the area and get all of the signs and lights back working. Forestry, wanted to highlight this. We brought on a part-time city forester late last summer, early in the fall, and she has been busy working on a lot of different projects, and she's a very sought-after individual, both with community members, residents, as well as city staff. I did want to highlight, we do have an upcoming tree sale that she is spearheading. So far, we've had a very good response. We've sold nearly 200 products to over 50 households here in the city of Lakeville, but the sale does continue through April 10th. So I encourage anyone that's interested. Information is online. Orders can be taken online and paid for online. And if you have any questions, I know our city forester would be happy to answer those. She has been quite busy with our street reconstruction project that we're preparing for here in 2017, and had led the crew through the private crew that we hired to do the removals and the trimming, had supervised them. I would like to point out that prior to bringing on this individual as a part-time forester, we used to contract for that service and spend upwards of $15,000 to $20,000 annually through our street reconstruction project, and now we're able to do that work in-house, so it's been very beneficial. Last couple slides are water use through the first quarter of the year. As you can see, in the first quarter of 2017, we used a little over 380 million gallons of water. This is about a 10% increase over our 10-year average, which is what's in blue. The red is showing this year, which makes a lot of sense. Ultimately, with the warm conditions we've had, lack of snow, other things, people have gotten out. I wouldn't say necessarily irrigating, but they're out maybe washing a car, hosing down their driveway, just using more water in general. Water use per capita, though, again, is fairly consistent with what we've seen over the 10-year average. It actually is somewhere between about 65 and 71 gallons through the first quarter of the year. Again, fairly consistent. You can just see the slight uptick in March, which would reflect, again, folks getting out and using a little bit more water. That does conclude the Public Works Department quarterly report for 2017 for the first quarter. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 7, public hearing on the certification of delinquent utilities. And to give the background information regarding this agenda item is Finance Director Geraldine Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. This item is an annual item before the council for you to consider certifying to the 28 property taxes, the delinquent utilities for finaled accounts, those accounts that have been closed because they've exchanged ownership from one owner to another, or maybe a tenant has moved out and a new tenant has moved in. And just a comment about the amount, it's about just about twice as much as it was last year, and about twice as many accounts, so about $7,500 for 2017.
Item number 7 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 8, Launch Park First Edition. And to give the background information regarding this agenda item is Community and Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
Evening, Mayor, members of the council. We have some slides tonight to go along with this, but I agree with the mayor. This is an exciting period of time that we're having the opportunity to work on this project. I have never kept track, but we've been through a couple iterations of concepts for development of this property in my tenure here at the city, and this is the closest we've gotten, and I think probably one of the better quality developments that that's been considered for this property. Everybody is probably familiar with the site, but it's about as far south in Lakeville as you can go. It is the aerial map shows that this is a 98.9 acre parcel. It's a portion of the 90, it's actually about half of it, 45.92 acres of the 98 acre parcel that was annexed to the city in 2006. It was part of Eureka Township, and the Reagan family Air Lake Development owned roughly the same size property just to the north that was already in the city, and it was the city council and staff's position back in 2006 that it made sense to plan it as one large 200 acre contiguous parcel. We were able to reach an agreement with Eureka Township on the annexation of that property. It was a mutually agreed upon annexation between the city, and there was a proration of taxes for a number of years to kind of ease the impact to the township from a property tax standpoint. Since that time, there have been a lot of discussions, and there have been some development proposals more to the north end of this property, and there has always been kind of an issue with the airport, and I'm pleased to say that that issue is somewhat resolved itself. There was a presentation last week. I was out of the office, but from the MAC on the status of the long-range plan for Air Lake Airport. We'll be bringing that information forward to the council here at some point. But the good news is that it no longer a runway extension of the airport, at least the interim extension, will no longer necessitate a realignment of Cedar Avenue, which had impacts on the potential development of this property. Zoning out here is all I-2. After it was annexed by the city in 2006, it was rezoned to I-2, which is our general industrial district. It's consistent with the land both to the north and on the other side of Cedar Avenue. And this is the proposed preliminary plat. And again, it's the southern half of about a 98-acre parcel. It involves 2 lots that will front on a new east-west street to be constructed, 222nd Street. It's being shown here to be temporarily cul-de-sac at the easterly boundary of the first lot to be platted, and eventually will be extended further east on the right-of-way that's being provided to the close to the border on the east side of the property. The building that is shown here is a proposed 286,000 square foot warehouse office complex, and it is intended to be multi-tenant. Launch Properties will not only plat the land, but build and own the building. And right now, it's been identified that Menasha Packaging is going to, as an agreement to lease approximately 150,000 square feet, so a little over half of this 286,000 square feet. If you want a sense of scale or comparison, this is almost the exact same size as the Uponor Warehouse distribution center on Dodd in that area of the industrial park. So it's a sizable building. This lot that's and you will see tonight we're only asking council for approval of the preliminary plat, but what comes back will include a final plat of this first lot to include the first building that will include 18.87 acres. The other item before the council is, and it's been discussed at a work session and by both the Planning Commission and City Council, and it's actually going to be incorporated into a proposed ordinance change, but we didn't want to delay this project unnecessarily, not knowing how long the ordinance process might take. So there is also a provision in the ordinance that allows for a building that doesn't meet the current requirements for exterior materials can seek approval through a conditional use permit. That's the route we're going on this project. By next month sometime, that option or that process will no longer be needed. This will become a permitted type of exterior material in the I districts, and that's been reviewed by the Planning Commission. I think a hearing is scheduled their second meeting later this month in April, and be coming to the council in the form of an ordinance amendment to your first meeting in May. But we wanted to keep the process going on this project. It's become, and we included in here, it's becoming a more common type of precast concrete building construction. There's just examples and things that you can do with colored stained concrete that's stained on site as opposed to integral colored which is mostly exposed aggregate. There's only so many colors of exposed aggregate that you can incorporate into a building. They tend to be all tans and grays, and just gives more options. And I should point out, it isn't necessarily a cost savings to the developer or the contractor, but it just gives more options and alternatives to building design, which we think is, and the technology's improved. I mean, we've had the integral color requirement for as long as I've been here, so it's been quite a while, but the technology in terms of stains and the longevity of the concrete stains that are being used now has gotten considerably better. So those are just some other examples. The Planning Commission considered this preliminary plat and CUP at their March 16th meeting and held a public hearing at that meeting. There was no public comments, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval. Park and Rec Natural Resource Committee reviewed it on March 15th and also recommended unanimously for approval. The other thing that I want to point out, and we've got other aspects of this project and the council's aware of, the next council meeting in 2 weeks from tonight, the council will be considering a proposed tax increment financing district for this project. And we are also proceeding with, and the project did lend itself, given the fact that one ownership of this entire area, one ownership entity, we are going to propose to do an assessment project for the construction of 222nd Street and the extension of water and sewer to this site. So those are two subsequent action items that will be coming before the council here in the coming weeks. With that, the motion before you is to approve the preliminary plat and conditional use permit, including findings of fact. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their April 3rd, 2017 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. Be a part of Earth Day 2017, sponsored by the City of Lakeville. Celebrate with us on Saturday, April 22nd from 11 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. at the city's Central Maintenance Facility. Don't miss out on fun educational stations, meet native animals, attend a planting and pruning demo, and catch live theater performances, a close-up look at city vehicles, and much more. That's the 2017 Earth Day celebration on Saturday, April 22nd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.